With the Oscar Piastri saga and the battle between Alpine and McLaren over the youngster, a lot of drama has stirred up in the Formula One paddock. This is a chain of events that started with the announcement of Sebastian Vettel's retirement earlier this year that saw Alonso jumping ship to Aston Martin. As things stand, Oscar and Ricciardo might not be the only drivers changing teams next year, with Mick also seeming to jump ship. Watch on to find out. Schumacher to cut Ferrari ties at end of 2022 F1 season. One source said that Schumacher's original contract with the Ferrari Driver Academy will end naturally after this season. Even though Haas hasn't said so, everyone in the paddock agrees that Schumacher won't be kept on by the US-owned team for a third season in 2023. Instead, Antonio Giovinazzi is currently the favorite to join Kevin Magnussen on the team. Alpine and Williams are the only teams with open seats left on the grid. Schumacher's close friend, Esteban Ocon, is supporting him as a candidate for Alpine. He has also been linked to an AlphaTauri seat, but Colton Herta is now the more likely candidate if a seat opens up. In the next few days, it's possible that Schumacher could lose out in the driver market. If that happens, Germany might not have a driver on the 2023 grid unless Alpine chooses Nico Hulkenberg. Schumacher first worked with Ferrari at the beginning of 2019 when he was invited to join the Ferrari Driver Academy. He had won the European F3 Championship the year before. In April 2019, he took his first F1 test in Bahrain with the SF90. The next day, he took a second test for Alfa Romeo. The fact that he used to work for Ferrari helped him get a seat with Haas in 2021. After a frustrating year with a car that wasn't very good, he stayed with the team this year. His progress was slowed by a string of bad luck, but he got his first points with an 8th place finish at Silverstone and a 6th place finish in Austria. Schumacher was once talked about as a possible works driver, but lately there has been less support for him in the camp. Since Charles Leclerc and more recently Carlos Sainz have signed long-term contracts, it's clear that Schumacher won't be getting a race seat on the works team anytime soon. Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu are already on the team Alfa Romeo, which is a partner of Ferrari. The Chinese driver is expected to be confirmed soon for 2023. Under its current agreement with Sauber, the title sponsor no longer has first claim on one of the seats for a Ferrari-affiliated driver. Well, Sebastian Vettel backs Mick Schumacher to replace him at Aston Martin. Sebastian Vettel wants Mick Schumacher, who drives for Haas, to take his place at Aston Martin when he retires at the end of the season. Vettel said that he was giving up racing. With this news, the seat next to Lance Stroll at Aston Martin will be empty next year, and there is a lot of talk about who will take it. Vettel is close to the Schumacher family and looked up to Mick's dad, Michael, as a child. He said that he had a short conversation with Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll about possible replacements. Well, obviously I spoke to Lawrence and told them that I am not going to continue, Vettel said. We did have a very brief chat about what might be next. I do have a point of view. Mick is a great person in my eyes. I can't be totally objective about him because we're close, but I do think he's a great driver. He is a learner, and he keeps learning even when other people stop making progress or sort of stop learning. So he has a lot going for him, but he is still very young. So I'm not sure. It's not up to me. If you ask, I'll tell you what I think, but in the end, the team has to decide. Schumacher drives for Haas right now, but he doesn't have to stay with the team past the end of this year. Haas team principal Gunther Steiner said that Vettel's decision to leave Aston doesn't change anything for us, and that he and team owner Gene Haas would make a decision by the Italian Grand Prix in September. We will know by the end of the European season what we are doing, and then we will communicate it, Steiner said. We should start talking to Gene about it and going over the different things we could do. It has become standard to speak about this, but we will take our time. Mick Schumacher, coy on F1 future amid Alpine speculation. Mick Schumacher didn't want to talk about his future in Formula One on Thursday, even though his friend Esteban Ocon kept pushing for the German to replace Fernando Alonso at Alpine, which is owned by Renault, and drive with him. Schumacher is the son of 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher. At the end of the season, he will no longer be under contract with the Ferrari-powered Haas team, and he could also leave the Ferrari Driver Academy, FDA. When asked about his future at Haas and FDA, the German driver said, "What is being discussed behind the scenes between us is something I'd rather keep between us." He said this at the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort. "That's contractual matters, which I can't get into detail with," he said. Since Alonso said a month ago that he would leave Alpine at the end of the year to drive for Aston Martin, there has been a lot of talk about what will happen. Alpine said that Oscar Piastri, their backup driver, would take his place, but the Australian said he would not race for them. Daniel Ricciardo, an Australian who joined McLaren from Red Bull Racing, is no longer with the team. Schumacher and Ricciardo could also be in the running to join Alpine. Ricciardo has also been linked to Haas, but that team has close ties to Ferrari, which may want to put their backup driver, Antonio Giovinazzi, in it instead. Before the Dutch Grand Prix, Ocon told reporters the team will make the right decisions. He also said that Alpine knew what his preference was. "People know that my choice, if I had anything to say, would be Mick. If he doesn't have anything lined up for next year. Alpine is 4th in the Constructors' Championship, which is made up of 10 teams. Moving on to other F1 news, Fernando Alonso apologized to Lewis Hamilton for comment. Fernando Alonso wants to apologize to 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton in person at this weekend's Dutch Grand Prix. He called Hamilton an after a crash at last weekend's Belgian Grand Prix. On the first lap of the race, Hamilton and Alonso bumped into each other as they fought for position at Lecombe. Hamilton later said that he was to blame for the accident, but Alonso made his anger clear on his car-to-pit radio at the time. "What an Alonso said, from the outside, closing the door. We got off to a good start, but this guy can only drive and start in first gear." Alonso talked about it before this weekend's Dutch Grand Prix. He said it was a quick reaction meant for his race engineer, but he also thought it had been overblown. "It made a huge thing," Alonso said. "First of all, it's Lewis. He's a champion and a living legend. And then, and I'm sorry to keep saying this, if you say something bad about a British driver, the media gets very involved. They have been telling Checo Perez, Carlos Sainz, and me a lot of things. Everything is a little bit more fun if you say something to a Latino driver. When you say something to someone else, it's a bit more important. But yes, I'm sorry." Alonso said that he doesn't agree with what he said in the radio message. After seeing the replays, Alonso said he didn't blame Hamilton and agreed with the stewards that the accident happened on the first lap. He also said that he had said bad things about Hamilton over the radio because he was so excited to be in the top 3. Finally, American driver Colton Herta on verge of F1 race seat with Red Bull Junior Team AlphaTauri. Colton Herta, an American driver, is close to joining Formula 1 in 2023 with the Red Bull Junior Team AlphaTauri. This will depend on what the FIA does with his super license. Herta, who is 22 years old and currently races in IndyCar, tested F1 cars with McLaren this year and has been talked about for a seat at AlphaTauri if Pierre Gasly leaves the team to replace Fernando Alonso at Alpine. Based on his race results in other series, the Californian does not have the 40 super license points he needs to drive in F1. The FIA, which is in charge of racing, has been thinking about making an exception for Herta when it comes to points scored during COVID-reduced seasons, since he is so close to the mark. Helmut Marko, who is in charge of Red Bull's famous driver program, is sure that Herta will get a pass. A super license for Herta might cause a lot of trouble. The system is set up so that drivers can't get into F1 if they haven't done well in enough other championships. F1 boss Stefano Domenicali said earlier this week that the sport can't let one driver set a bad example. Unfortunately, guys, that is all the time we had for today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Till next time, cheers!